If we want America to change, if we want a vision for a new America to be realized, then we've got to climb the ladder, and we've got to do it step by step and re-inhabit the republic. Re-inhabit it. We've got to live in it. We can't just dream about it or talk about it. Talk is really cheap. Anybody can talk an ideology or a philosophy or a political ideal or something on that divide and conquer spectrum of left versus right, you know? Because all that's an illusion. It's a deeply embedded illusion. It's a deception. And as long as we keep buying into it, we're going to keep playing that game. We're not going to win that game. We're going to keep playing it, though. So we're really raising the ropes here. Raising the ropes. So what is sovereignty from an internal perspective? I'll define it. Sovereignty, internally, is reclaiming your internal authority over your life and your power as a co-creator with God or with Source. Sovereignty from an external perspective would be defined as sovereignty is the source of authority from which all laws and governments arise. I'll repeat that. Sovereignty is the source of authority from which all laws and legitimate governments arise. You've heard that, well, governments are formed from the consent of the governed. You've heard that expression, right? So if we, the people, are sovereign and we form a new government through some democratic process, which is just a process of decision-making, really, and come to elect then our government or appoint the governments or form those governments, then those governments are duly formed under the de jure laws of nations. It used to be the laws of nations. There was certain conduct that occurred around nations, and of course they violated that conduct all the time, and that's called war. War is the violation of the sovereignty of a nation or the sovereignty of a people. And if you feel like we're at war, well, it's because your sovereignty is being violated. And so long as we continue to consent to that and to allow that to occur, then it will continue to occur. But we have to shift out of being a victim into responsibility. And we're a very strange culture. We shun responsibility like a curse, like a disease. We don't want to be responsible. We push it away in every area of our lives. Let the government be responsible for me. Let my insurance companies take care of it. Let my employer take care of it. Somebody else pay for it. Somebody else do it for me. Take care of me. That's not the sovereign way. It's not a sovereign attitude. It's not that you have to do everything on your own. That's why we have other people. That's why we create systems, economic systems, political systems, and legal systems, in theory, to protect and serve the rights and the property of the people. Which is a very libertarian idea, is that the only purpose of government is to protect the rights, liberties, and properties of the people. Wow, that would be an amazing concept. Imagine that. We certainly wouldn't need as much government as we have today if we are abiding by libertarian principles of limited government. That might take a while to get back to restoring that. So, Occupy Wall Street, I would say, occupy sovereignty. Or better said, because occupy is somewhat of a warring term, it's like I'm going to occupy your house, or I'm going to occupy your building or something. I would just simply say inhabit sovereignty. Inhabit it. Be it. Inhabit freedom. Live it. Be it. That's where the shift is going to occur. And the wake-up call is out there. And we're watching tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people waking up right now. And they're not all out on the streets. They're not all out on the streets. I haven't been out on the streets, but I've been aware of it. As I've been aware of it in the Middle East and in Egypt and other countries too. This is a global event. So there is a bit of an overview of sovereignty. I could go into more of the history of it, and I'll do so just briefly. And then I'll move on to the next piece here, which is to restoring a republic for which we stand united, which is part of the vision for a new America. So now that we understand that sovereignty isn't just out there, but it's also in here, it's internal and external. Historically, there have been the sovereigns were the kings, the queens, the monarchs in Europe, or the guy who had the biggest club. Those were the sovereigns. And whoever wielded that club was the boss, the big guy, the big guy. That was the bosses. So when America was founded with really a truly original vision of forming a country under equality and justice for men, and even though it was just men, white male property owners back then, today there are no barriers to sovereignty for all the people. All the people, that's everyone. Gosh, if we could just live that one principle, we could do away with 20s of thousands of law books, and we could fire about 2 million attorneys, and we could put most of the people that are running for office out of business, basically, if we, the people, governed ourselves. Imagine that. We, the people, governing ourselves, internally and externally, instead of relying on external authority to do it for us, instead of outsourcing it, you could say. Stop outsourcing government. Insource it. Oh. You are the source of authority from which laws and governments arise. You are the internal authority over your life. You get to make the choice. You get to have the life that you want to create. And you know what the key to happiness is? Want what you have. Want what you have instead of hungering for what you don't have, desiring for what you don't have. And there's plenty of temptation to desire and want what you don't have, and to continue to fuel this whole machine. Seems to be a machine. The Borg. Star Trek fans would understand that analogy. So until America, there was no other nation ever formed based on the sovereignty of the people. And that was true in the common law system, which was original constitutional system, is a common law system. If we have a true constitutional government, we would have a common law system, because we inherited that from Great Britain. The common laws were parallel to the Constitution, and then the statutory laws, which are the laws that are created by legislatures. So there's a distinction between the common laws, constitutional, and statutory laws. Virtually everything that we're operating with now in the legal system is all statutory law. Common law has kind of gone into the background. It's kind of like hidden. But we've all heard about common law marriages and things like that, right? So we still have some little inkling of what that is. But for all practical purposes, we're not operating under the common law. And we don't have a common law system. In fact, we don't even have a judicial system any longer. It's all statutory. We don't have 3 branches of government anymore. We have 1 branch of government. It's a political system that has its own self-interest in mind. There aren't 3 branches of government. There isn't a balance of power between the federal, the state, and the local anymore. It's all collapsed into one system. And then you can add the media and the corporations and the bankers on top of that, and they're all part of that power structure. One agenda, one unilateral system. In the old original vision, there was balance of powers. That was the original genius of the founders, was if you want to have a republic for which it stands united, then you must find clever little ways so that not any one person who has a somewhat large club can dominate everybody else. And so you do that through balance of power. You create these distinct jurisdictions. You have a federal jurisdiction, you have a state jurisdiction, you have a local city jurisdiction, you have a county jurisdiction, and then you have this whole national jurisdiction independent from other nations, too. So each body of law has its own jurisdiction. So note that. So when you come up against that beast, jurisdiction is really the first thing that has to be established. You know, I can't really get to questions because I'll probably get.
There's a point, not a question, but that's
yeah.
okay.
If you want to make a point.
Well, I was going to say there's common law, which is constitutional, and then there's equity law, which is statutory. But when you're in court, you often find yourself under maritime law. So that's like a third.
There's maritime and admiralty jurisdiction too, which is a law of international contract.
Okay.
Equity is a law of domestic contract.
Oh, okay.
And common law is just simply you and I working it out, you know, by having a conversation with each other, and hopefully we don't have to go into any of those other venues.